All right. For those of you who have been following the Grow From project, we are working on understanding what it is that helps people grow. We're celebrating the people that help others grow, careers, authors, and motivational speakers, mentors, coaches, whoever it is that is all about growth. And we feature some really great people. And one of the things that sits at the core of all of personal growth, if you talk to anyone about, what it is they're doing to make their lives better, you'll find that there's two types of people. There's the kind who are motivated and the kind who are not. And for those who are motivated, there is a broad array of resources available to them to learn and to grow and to step into that positive growth trajectory. But then there's the other people who are satisfied with the status quo. And there's the old saying, if you're not growing, you're dying. And to some degree, we have to take that with a grain of salt. But at the same time, it's like, if you're not motivated, if you're not growing in life, what is it that you're doing? And so this is a mystery that the world, and as far as I know, has not solved. We know what to do with people once they're inspired. We know we have some ideas of what can inspire people, but we really don't have it dialed into the degree that we can take a person who's unmotivated and make them motivated. And this has tremendous impacts on us from a social perspective in terms of people that we love, people that we care about, helping them overcome challenges and make meaningful progress in life. It has an economic impact. There's some estimate like $22 trillion is lost because of lack of motivation. I think that's a corporate statistic, but just to give an estimate of the scale of the problem. And so the question is, where are we today? And the exploration that I want to take you on and I want to take myself on is, what is motivation? How does it move people? And can we impart it? Is there something that we can do individually to motivate another person or even change ourselves for motivation? I've been researching this topic for the better part of 15 years, and mostly from the perspective of personal development, understanding how to manage myself, understanding how to manage my own motivation. And through that, there have been some lessons that I've gained to help me understand how to motivate others. But it's not so clear cut. Obviously, from a leadership perspective as well, there are tools and tricks to help motivate a workforce, and we'll take a look at some of the studies in terms of enterprise or corporate motivation. But in this particular video, I just want to talk about some of the new understanding we have around motivation. And specifically, I want to talk about health and motivation. So there has been a growing body of research to help indicate that our physical health actually has a lot to do with how we can become motivated, with whether we are sufficiently stimulated to make meaningful progress in life. And anecdotally, we know, and even scientifically, we know it's healthy to exercise. It's healthy to eat right. When you're in school, they tell you to eat well and rest up before a big exam because we know that has some cognitive benefits. But what's less understood is whether a person's health, diet, and exercise routines, or whether a person's body chemistry in general can actually influence their ability to motivate themselves. And there's some really interesting research in this area. The first one, if you guys aren't familiar with him, Andrew Huberman, his videos look like this. This is Andrew. He's got a ton of videos. He's a neuroscientist out of Stanford, and he has just done a lot of explaining on, chemically speaking, how the brain works, and provided a lot of examples of how we can leverage this information to make our lives better. And he's got tons of great thoughts on the topic and does a great job of explaining it. But one of the things that I find really interesting is his review of dopamine in terms of being able to stay motivated. So like, let's say you are at this level of motivation, and or let's say you're at this level of dopamine and you need this level of motivation. Well, you can spike your dopamine to make you more energized, to make you excited about something. So you know, dopamine spikes can come from, you know, being at a concert, being eating sugar, going for a run. You know, you can spike dopamine in a number of different ways. But what happens is, over time, what they're finding is, as we consume processed foods, as we consume sugars, as we entertain ourselves with YouTube and kind of multitask in these fields of entertainment, what we're doing is lowering our threshold for dopamine. So essentially, we need more dopamine to reach that motivational threshold. So there is some evidence that if your diet is poor, maybe you just can't get motivated enough to really sustain a long-term change in your life. We'll have to explore that more. We know that fitness can reduce anxiety and improve cognition. And where this is beneficial from a motivational perspective is how we perceive the world. There's an equation that says the event plus our response equals our outcome. And so how we perceive what happens to us, how we interpret it, and how we respond to it defines what actually that means for us and how that changes our life. And so many people, especially on the unmotivated side of the spectrum, what they're doing is they're taking life events, negative life events, they're applying a negative response to it, and they're getting a negative outcome. Where other people, what they've done is, you know, they like multiply by -1, right? So you take a negative life event, multiply by -1, and suddenly you got something positive on the other side. And but being able to do that, and this research may suggest that our cognitive ability to do that may be hampered through our physical health. So maybe our body chemistry just is simply screwing up our brain's ability to think positively. You know, the next one is serotonin, talking about boosting confidence and hindered by chemical imbalances. So physically speaking, and this isn't necessarily about serotonin or chemical imbalances, but this is general health. Our physical health is at the bottom of the pyramid of hierarchy of needs. We need to be healthy, because if we're not healthy, it's hard to focus on anything else. And so having chemical imbalances, maybe depression, clinical depression is certainly one of the issues. These things can really play a strong role in inhibiting us from making meaningful progress. Now, there are examples there are incredible examples of exceptions to this. One is the man with the iron lung. I mean, the guy has terrible health. He can't even exercise, yet he went to college. You know, he was locked in an iron cage. You can. Well, I'll just pull it up here. Man with iron lung. It's an incredibly old machine, but he was basically trapped in this machine here for his entire life. He went to college. He was inspired. So certainly it doesn't tell our body chemistry, and our physical health can't tell the 100% what our motivation will look like. So it's important to recognize that too. This is a multi-part problem. This is not something that can be boiled down to a single solution. But understanding that serotonin plays a role in boosting confidence, that chemical imbalances can impact our motivation. There's certainly some evidence there that our physical health can do that. But the most interesting, and this is really where I wanted to get to with this video, the most interesting new research in this area is in the mind-gut connection. And so, or I call it gut-brain on this slide, but basically the mind-gut connection is this idea that is coming about that our thoughts and our ability to think are much more entwined with our diet than previously supposed. And one of the best videos I've seen on this one is by Dr. Emran Mayer. It's this one on YouTube if you haven't seen it. So Dr. Emran is this gentleman here. And he's here in this video. This is all 7 years ago, but he's talking at Google, which has its own significance. But he's talking at Google to a group of people about how our mind and gut are connected and the current research on this. And what I find really interesting is in our day-to-day lives, once we leave school at least, our ability to understand diet and nutrition goes way down, or our education on diet and nutrition goes way down. Many of us just do whatever it is or eat whatever it is that we ate when we were in school or when our parents raised us, whatever our parents did for diet. And so much research is coming out talking about things like the Mediterranean diet, the Blue Zone diet, and prescribing these things as health issues. But Dr. Emran's talking about these things not necessarily as health issues, but actually as cognitive ability issues, the ability to think well being entwined with our diet. And so he has a couple things in here. Let's see if I can just pull them up. So here's one talking about how it's not just a one-way street. We might think of how our brain, how our stomach, obviously with the nutrients that go into our body can nourish our brain. We also know that sugar that goes into our body can spike different levels, can spike our dopamine. But what's really interesting here is this arrow here. And it's the idea that not only is the body sending signals, that should have gone the other way. Not only is the body sending signals to the brain, or the gut providing nutrition to the brain, but the brain is actually also supplying information to the body. And actually, if you think about this, we kind of know that some of this is true. Like, we know that if we're stressed, that how we eat is different. We know that if we're stressed, our body craves sugary foods. But what is interesting is that our brain is actually telling our body how to process these foods as well. And so it's not just a one-way connection to the brain, from the stomach to the brain, but it's also a connection from the brain to the stomach. And so one of the things that we can take away from all of this is that motivation may in fact have a lot to do with our diet, and more to the point may have a lot to do with our habits around what we eat and how we exercise. So if you're in a place in life where you're struggling to be motivated, where you're struggling to have breakthroughs in life, it's not the end all be all, but it's certainly worth taking a look at what your diet is doing to support or inhibit your ability to be motivated and to take steps in the right direction. So we're going to talk a little bit more about these things. I've got several different topics in this area that I'm going to talk about in other streams. We're talking about body chemistry here, but talking about IQ and psychology and our social environment, as well as how do we communicate, how do we personalize the message of motivation, or how do we personalize a message to inspire motivation in another person, and what that kind of looks like. So we'll do more videos on that, but hopefully from this video, you take the spark of inspiration, you take the spark of the idea that take a look at your diet, see if there are things in there that you can make improvements on for yourself or for the people that you care about. And maybe that will provide you the energy you need to tackle your next big project or to make that big breakthrough.